On today's episode of Among the Clouds, I'm talking to Dirk Knight from the bands Seasurfer and Dark Orange. Seasurfer's latest album, Zombies, was released in late 2020. We talk about how Dirk discovered dreamier music as a teenager in Germany, as well as how he writes and records songs with Seasurfer. Stay tuned. Hey, Dirk, thanks for doing the show. How are you doing in Germany?
Yeah, thanks. Nice to meet you for the first time personally. So, yeah, I've just come back from a small holiday from the Baltic Sea. That's the area between Denmark, Sweden, and northern Germany. So I'm relaxed now, and I hope to have some nice talking to you now.
Just real fast before we get started, I just wanted to kind of say like a quick little story. So we met sort of online, probably 2015 or 16 or so. We Whimsical had reformed after being away for 10 or 11 years, and we signed to St. Marie Records, which you were also signed to with Seasurfer. And what's funny is your album Dive In, it was the first album. That's how I even heard of St. Marie Records. So I had bought your CD, heard of St. Marie Records, then I ended up getting signed to them with you. Then you end up doing a remix for our song Surreal, which was, and that came out in 2017, but I think you did it at least a year earlier, but we were waiting for our album to come out. Mm-hmm. A couple years later, my singer Chrissy ended up doing vocals on a Seasurfer song called Blind Me, right? Yeah, right. That was 2017.
I think it was for a compilation from St. Marie, I think.
Yeah, it was for one of the Static Waves compilations.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's I think it's a great song. At the time, Chrissy had sent me all her vocal tracks, and I edited them and kind of composited them to send to you. And even at that time, I knew it was going to be a really great song. Was it 2020? You asked us to do a remix of one of your songs, Too Wild, which we did, which was a lot of fun. But the real funny story is I had found out after you and I had talked many times that your band Dark Orange also put out a song under the name 24 Hours that was on this Heavenly Voices compilation that I got probably in 93 or 94. And even though it's a remix version of the song, it happened to be one of my favorite songs on the compilation. And then I actually have the actual real version.
Yeah.
So it was funny that I was in high school at the time. So I was probably like 17 or so when I heard that song. And years later, come to find out that, you and I had sort of worked together in some way. So it was kind of interesting and funny how it all came around.
Yeah, that's fine. Great. I didn't even know that you ever heard about Dark Orange in the US. I think we have on a greater compilation from Cleopatra Records or so. So we got some friends from the US also working with Dark Orange. But we have been on the German label here on Hyperion. Mm-hmm. And it was more, I think they got also sent some CDs to the US, but mostly they are famous in Europe. So that's...
Yeah, for us, the Hyperion stuff was kind of released through Project Records.
Okay.
And Project, although they were in LA, that for a long time they were in Chicago. Chrissy and I grew up about 30 miles out of Chicago. So it was kind of, right there. So anyway, this is kind of a funny little side note. All right. So obviously you've been doing this a while. I think Dark Orange started in 1990 or 91?
Yeah, I think we started 1989 and first shows in 1990 because I still remember because my first live show was as a support for Galaxy 500 here in Hamburg. And it was a sold-out Markthalle, around 1,000 people, and we were so young. It was on the first real show, and we were already think, oh, we can't go out. There's so many people. So, and Galaxy 500 was very famous around the time in the 19th. So it was great. But it's exactly the way I think we started in 1990 and do it until 1993, and then have a bigger space and then doing stuff like 24 hours.
What was your first experience hearing what would be considered shoegaze at the, what was it and what was your thoughts at the time?
Yeah, I started when I was at school at the age of around 16 with making music, but this was more a period when we were all doing punk music, and this was around this time, 1982, when a lot of punk bands from England coming to Germany, and I was not even 16 years old, and my parents didn't even know where I'm going at night. There was a girl on school, she was a little bit older, and she often go to London. We were so young, we can't go, but she was going to London and came back with teased black hair, and said, "Hey, what's that?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm insecure. I'm insecure. I met Robert Smith in London, and she know him very well." And that was the first time when I got a little bit away from this punk rock stuff, more to post-punk, a little bit more depressive, deeper, darker music. And for me, the Pornography from the Cure, I think it was 1982 when Pornography came out. This was really a new experience. Then first Cocktail Twins stuff came out. It was also, I think, in the mid 80s. Was a U2 fan for the first Red Skies Over Paradise, when all these layer guitars and delay guitars running over some bass lines and working with layers, and I really get catched by it. But for me, the shoegaze stuff is a little bit different from the dream pop. Because I say dream pop was for me was more cleaner guitars, and where the vocals working really like a little bit more like in pop music, very very in front of the song. And for me, shoegaze is a little bit more noisy, distorted, and using the vocals like an instrument.
I think you kind of touched on this, but you were a musician already before you had heard this type of music.
Yeah. Because I think in my generation, making music was also some kind of attitude and position in life, and it was so when all the youth they have different scenes here in Germany, like people hearing mod music or ska or punk music, and it was something when you go out at night or meet friends, you always have some kind of community. And people are orientated and defined about music, and it was really important for us because the whole crowd we meet outside, they were listening, and we are going to concerts, to parties, and music was a central point of people, how they are orientated. And
it defined who you were.
Absolutely, and it's until today, and that's because we all don't feel old. I think we all feel really young, and I think I'm still 20 in my head and making stuff like that. But who cares? I think it's better.
Yeah, I totally can relate to that. A lot of my friends that I'm still friends with now at 44, I've been friends with them because of music since we were 14 years old. We either have played in bands together or we went to shows together, but it was all based on music. And a lot of that was, we might not even really know each other if we weren't wearing, I saw them wearing a shirt or, you know what I mean? And it's like, hey, but music was everything. Whereas now I think it's kind of like, they just like certain songs. It's not about albums or they don't even care who wrote it or anything. Whereas I used to memorize like where it was mastered and who recorded it and mixed it, and I would get so upset if a member left of a band, and you know what I'm saying. So it's completely different now. Okay, so at what point did you realize you could start writing songs that you're kind of known for?
I think when I started Dark Orange in 1990 or 1989, it was three people, a bass, guitar, and vocals, and a drum machine. And we were very influenced also by the Cocteau Twins, also by a band called, and also the Trees. They are also from England. I think they are not as famous in the US, but they were really famous in Germany and France, and they got a lot of touring, and we supported them very often. And they were really doing great guitar sounds, working with reverbs and delays. And at the beginning, I didn't use fuzz or distortion a lot. It's mostly using cleaner guitars by Oli, and it's a cleaner ethereal sound. In 2000, I came back and said, okay, I really got back into the more guitar stuff and fuzz stuff, and I started then Seasurfer because it's not easy to find your own sound, because if you have too many influences, it's not clear. So I started Seasurfer and saying, no, now I want to do the sound. I want to be the boss in the band, and I want to find the sound and hope to find some people doing it with me. I would have to become a painter, a real painter, but I'm not able to paint. So I think, okay, I have to paint with sound and do layers of guitars and doing really noisy stuff, and want to have a really ethereal vocals in it. But then came Dorian, and she was not ethereal, but she was just cool. I said, I have to do it with her. So it was also the time when we got the contract with Saint Marie from the US. When I think we have had 5 or 6 songs. We have had made a demo and sending it to Saint Marie and saying, we are from Germany, and maybe you would like to bring out a German band and see. And one day later, he reacted and said, "That's great music. I want to sign you." And this was for me a very important period, because it was a time then when we said, okay, we can make it, and we got a deal in the US. Often when you started, you didn't know if you have some small success, getting a label, bring your music out. And that was a point when we got a feeling and saying, okay, there are people interested in it. The only inspiration I really have in doing Seasurfer, also the first album, was trying to have dynamics and try to get explosions in the sound.
She was bringing something different. I think your guitar sound was bringing something different. It was sort of the slow dive guitar synth sound, but on steroids. I had ordered the album, got the CD, and real quickly it became one of my favorite albums of all time. I honestly, I love it. I can't even tell you how many times I've listened to it. So nowadays, there's a lot of boutique pedals, a lot of companies that are coming out with equipment that is very tailored towards shoegaze or post metal or post rock, or they know what these bands are. Whereas back in 1991, when I started my first shoegaze band that I did in high school, all we had was a couple Boss pedals and like some DoD stuff. But now there's definitely a market for this sort of thing. I know you collect a lot of pedals. I see pictures, you post stuff. Is that something you keep up with? Because you definitely have your own, that, like I had talked about earlier, your own guitar sound, as far as that very washed out, almost synth sound. Have you been updating the gear and always getting that sound, or is that still the same gear this whole time that you're producing that sound with?
I did my sound mainly with using my jazz chorus and using in real stereo, EX700, and I always using it as a real stereo with the amp and the delay and the tempo of the sound. Also recording all guitars in real stereo, and you can put a lot of stuff in front, because and also it doesn't have to fit in the tempo of the song, but the delay in the end fits it all to the tempo. So that's it. And so you have to always define the guitar sound a little bit. Sometimes I read or I heard about a pedal and listened to it on YouTube or stuff like that, and saying, okay, maybe I got it, and it will get me some new inspiration for a riff, for a sound using it.
Right.
Then I normally make a break and saying, okay, now I want to get some new inspiration, to get some new sound. But normally you can't use more than, I think, 4 or 5 pedals in a chain, because otherwise it gets crazy. So,
right.
And normally I really record with FX, not doing it later in the computer, because when doing a song, I have to have a sound with FX on, so I get some inspiration by doing the riffs.
Okay.
I can't play a clean guitar and making a song from it. No, it has to be a very full sound.
If I understood you correctly, you're changing out pedals to get inspiration, but you're running them through a basic setup that you get your sound, but it's what you run through it that sort of is updated. Okay. Yeah. And so when you're writing your songs, are you writing the song start to finish, and then you program the drums, and then you record the song, or which is like your traditional way of recording?
Normally, I just doing guitar noise and saying, oh, it sounds cool, and recording it, and then taking the bass and playing, working out and look in the harmonics, what fits well, and then working it out. There are sometimes days when it all going out so easy, and you get a lot of inspiration from your sound, and doing it, and then doing new guitars on it, and then dividing parts, and then doing special like guitars for a course or stuff like that.
One thing I want to ask before I forget: when you're writing your songs, are you thinking about a song structure? Are you trying to do like a pop song structure, verse, chorus, some sort of middle, verse, chorus, ending? Or are you just letting the song kind of dictate where it goes?
I'm a little bit traditional in this, because I always think about verse and chorus, and always have a C part with the different harmonies, and at the end, a lot of guitar stuff and very noisy. I think that's the slow dive influence.
Sure.
So, because that's really what I mostly like about their sound, is all going crazy in the end. It depends also a little bit on the vocals today, what a singer bring me, and what I say, okay, sometimes I use vocals, a singer think that's not for the chorus. I use them for the chorus and putting in a different context. And then changing a little bit the harmonics and working it out, and often it works.
Because the tempos a lot of times are pretty slow in this type of music, I find it very hard to keep the song times down. Like my song lengths are always around 4.5, 5 minutes long, no matter what I do. Is that something you keep in mind, or do you just write the song?
I also try to get it as short as possible today, because normally we are just doing a new single with a song called Drifting from our last album, which will be out in August. And the label said, and please, can you do a single version and also an extended version like the older days?
Right.
And I did a version nearly 12 minutes long. And if the riff is cool, then it works. Right. In our scene, we don't have to think about traditional pop length of songs. It doesn't matter.
The only reason I would disagree with that, I agree with what you're saying, but unfortunately, vinyl is kind of dictating song lengths right now. And I hate it. You have to think 35, 40 minutes for vinyl. And because my song lengths are so long, I'm lucky if I can get 9 songs on there. So the whole time I'm writing songs, especially for this album, the new album, I'm constantly thinking, like when I start getting close to that 5-minute mark, I'm going, oh my God, this is taking a huge chunk of vinyl. So is that something you keep in your head, or is it is what it is?
Yeah, it's a really big problem. We have had the problem with our latest album, when we have to decide to put songs out, and that's not something I didn't deal with it. I don't think about it doing, but it's true. It's really big. And we thought at first doing a double album, but that's too expensive.
No label for us is going to pay for that.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
It's not fun. It's just adds stress that doesn't need to be there. Are you always trying to find that perfect Seasurfer sound, or are you sort of changing up and letting the songs decide, each release, this album's going to sound more like this?
Yeah, I think each album has to have his own sound. And that's, I think I really like it if the main idea is still there. Hopefully, and in the past it was there. You get to a point when you get in a good direction and to have a good feeling in an idea, how an album should sound. I'm now going back a little bit to the roots, doing faster, noisier music. Going back into how you said in the beginning, a bit more into the dream punk. On the new songs we're doing are not allowed to be slower than 180 BPM, but it works. And it's really nice. And that's important what I said about the singer. Normally Apollonia said, "You're being crazy. You are doing punk rock. I can't sing to it." And I say, don't care about what I am doing. Just think about the half tempo. Do serious stuff, do crazy stuff with your vocals, and don't care. And she knows now that in the end, it all will fit together. And I'm working out the vocals, and I'm really excited now and really happy that I'm able to do really fast songs, always with dreamy and shoegaze influences.
Yeah, we tried to keep a balance of cleaner, slower, dreamier songs, and then the more distorted, faster, upbeat songs. Chrissy's always trying to get me to do the slower ones, and I'm always trying to do the faster ones. But I mean, it's good to have a balance of both. One thing we kind of touched upon it is, for me, plugins. It's almost like getting a new guitar pedal. It's cheaper a lot of times than getting a new guitar pedal, but that's part of the fun. I don't have to wait a week or whatever for a pedal to come in the mail. I just go find a plugin I like, PayPal, buy it, and there's so many great plugins now to give you the inspiration like you're talking about. You can record something simple and throw it in a plugin nowadays, and all of a sudden it creates something completely new. And that's a whole nother thing that we couldn't have done 20 years ago, or what. I mean, they had Pro Tools and stuff 20 years ago, but not plugins like they are now.
I mostly use plugins for vocals and not mainly for guitars. Normally I only do some equalization on the bass and on the guitars, but also recording it with distortion originally, but only doing some equalization. Sometimes adding maybe some reverb.
When you're recording your guitars, are you recording microphone in a guitar amp into the microphone? Or are you using any virtual amps, or a combination of both?
No, I normally use the line out of the jazz chorus, stereo line out, so I don't have the microphone. And like I said, it was I defined the sound about, and the good thing about this amp, it's a real stereo amp, and you always, in this FX loop I use this delay, and because the speakers are in real stereo, they are not virtual stereo but real stereo, and it's really cool if you have a stereo delay and some kind of ping pong delay that goes into the song tempo, and that's really important. And that's got this washy white sound. And normally I use 5 or 6 different guitar parts, laying it over and over and over and doing it like the panorama, try to get a whole range of sound. And I really like it when it's in the, sometimes guitars are only on the left side coming in, and what's that coming in, and a new story. So it's the way I normally work it out.
Is there any piece of gear that is vital to your sound, whether it's the JC120 or that rack mount piece, or perhaps a fuzz pedal, or a guitar?
A lot of using how we call it, the memory man.
Oh, the memory man, right?
Because I think the reverse is cool. I'm using now today a lot the Holy Grail Max often, because to have good reverse and then go into the fast. I sometimes use Boss pedals, also the heavy metal or the hyper metal.
The Boss HM2?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my most important pedals I use. The way to find your sound, to try different pedals and say, okay, that's a sound I'm really getting into it. And at least you will have, I think, 5 or 6 pedals that you normally use in a song.
I've been asking everybody to pick one song that's their favorite shoegaze song, or a song that if they had to show somebody what shoegaze is, what song, what means shoegaze to you, and then also what's your favorite song that you've done and why.
My own personal favorite song I've done, it's Stay from our first album, because for me it has all a good song has to be, because it's also a little bit song tempo that's not so slow. It's always good vocals. It has parts like sound a little bit like Placebo. I'm a really fan of Placebo in the past, and it also has some kind of sound explosions doing a solo part in it, and it's not too long, not too short, and I really like the atmosphere. It's a little bit like, that was the time period when I say maybe I can call it dream punk, because it has sound, tempo, and energy. That's important for me, energy in the song.
Right.
And for another band, it's like most musicians from the scene mentioned, I think it's a slow dive song, and my favorite is Celia's Dream, because for the same reason, it had cool vocals, parts with vocals in the focus, a lot of dynamics and breakout and noise at the end. I think it's perfect. It's a great song.
And I agree with both songs. I think Stay was probably the first song I heard from Seasurfer. It shows what you guys are all about, in my opinion. Yeah. So it would be a song where if I had to show somebody what Seasurfer is, that would be a good example of it.
Yeah, thank you.
If people wanted to check out Seasurfer music, where can they go online to find Seasurfer?
I think if you want to listen to songs and also to the important songs, I know each song is important, but some more than others, I think Spotify is cool for it. I'm using a lot of Spotify, and I'm paying for Spotify. I also buy CDs from my favorite bands, but I mostly listen to music on Spotify today.
Thanks, Dirk, for doing the episode. I appreciate talking to you, and it was nice talking to you after all this time of messaging, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, same for me. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk to you, also to get in touch with people far away over the ocean, not here from Europe, but also from the US, and always interesting and nice also for me to talk about music, to talk about how other people are creating music and what they think about music. And I think it's really cool to do some stuff like you do, to bring people together to talk about how they do music. And I think at least we are all in a very special community living with our kind of music and sound. Always a pleasure for me to talk to friends who are have a common spirit like we all have. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I'd like to thank Dirk for taking the time to talk to me. It was nice to finally talk to him after all these years of communicating online. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.